Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I step off the train and deliver an episode to you while I walk home. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good afternoon, listeners. It is a lovely day here in suburban Chicago, and I am walking home from the train, having had a lovely ride, and enjoying the weather, which is very nice. It's unseasonably warm, as we would say here in Chicago. It is normally pretty chilly in December, and it is instead in the high 40s Fahrenheit, almost warm enough to take off my hat. I'm leaving it on though, but because I don't have gloves on. And yeah, nice day. So enjoying my walk home. I thought today I would do a segment I really enjoy, but I don't know if you enjoy. Nonetheless, here it comes. That is The Geek Asks. For those of you who are new to the podcast, every now and again, in a fit of hubris, I look at the Board Game Geek recent forum posts, and without actually reading any of the posts, just looking at the subject lines, I respond as though those posts were directed at me directly. Most of the time, I only respond to the ones that are written like they're questions, although sometimes I will respond to the ones that aren't. This is done live and in real time with no prep. So if I give an answer that's stupid, now you know why. I'd be interested to hear from regular listeners or new listeners what you think of this segment. I don't think I have ever gotten any feedback on it. And I feel like I ask every time because part of me really enjoys doing it and part of me feels like it's the dumbest thing I do on this podcast. So if you have feedback one way or the other, glad to hear it. So here we go. Dallin Barlow writes, roll and write theme ideas, which could be a question asked in one of two ways. The first would be that this person is asking whether roll and writes need themes at all. Do you need theme ideas for roll and writes? I mean, the short answer would be no. There are a lot of very successful roll and writes, perhaps the most successful roll and write, that don't have themes at all. Yahtzee, for instance, does not have a theme. I guess technically it's sort of poker themed, but really that's just poker hands are used to organize the dice. They don't actually, there's no theme around it involving poker. Ganshan Clever doesn't have a theme. There are a lot of roll and writes that have the loosest of themes. Patchwork Doodle, for instance, is not thematic at all. And Quicks, another favorite of mine, does not have a theme. Roll and writes that do have themes are, I think, better. Welcome to Cartographers, Titania Ascending. These are all games that have well-developed themes and I think are better for it. So I'm going to say yes, there should be themes in roll and writes. Now the other interpretation of the question roll and write theme ideas would be, hey, can you give me some ideas for themes about roll and writes or roll and write themes? So a lot of it depends on what you think you want your roll and write to do. I think the explosion of them in the last couple of years has shown that really there is no theme that couldn't be applied, insofar as if you can apply it to board games at all, you can apply it to roll and writes. That said, thinking about a couple theme ideas that I'd like to see, some sort of combat war game in which you're checking off the other person's sheets are great. I always really enjoyed the Battletech game back when I was in high school, in which you had these giant mechs that attacked other giant mechs, and the way that you tracked the health of your mech was with this sheet that had a whole bunch of, we're talking dozens of little dots on it, and you would fill in the dots as you gain damage. And then when you repaired your mech, you could erase the dots. And so you would have this part of your sheet that just had been filled in and erased a bunch of times quite delightfully. So what about some sort of war game? Build a roll and write out of mech warrior combat. That's my theme idea for you. Dallin, enjoy. All right, here's somebody says, looking for games about forging swords. I don't know of any. I mean, I know that Isaac Childress's Forge War involves making things, as I recall. But I don't really recall there being a ton of detail about forging swords necessarily. It was more just about commerce in general. The founders of Gloomhaven similarly has construction as a part of the game, but again, not in much detail. So I am not your best resource. I don't know why you wrote that for me, Scott Aguirre. Aguirre? Aguirre. Aguirre is the the example I have there. All right, gamers going home for the holidays. What games are you showing to the fam? ? Ooh, good question, Joseph Vandenberg. So this year, going home for the holidays means going to visit my mother, who lives in Minnesota, and she has played a lot of different games, and she is generally game to play a game. But she doesn't have the desire to constantly be playing new games that my wife's mother has, and she actually prefers to play games that she's played before, at least some of the time. She's always game to try a new game if I suggest it, but she does prefer games she's played before because she can get better at them. So in that regard, we'll bring a mix of new games and old games. I'll definitely bring Ticket to Ride. I have I think it's the Switzerland map that we haven't played yet. So I'll bring that and we could try a new map. I also have Ticket to Ride New York, but that's just a 2-player game. I don't think we'll bring that one. I'm definitely going to bring So Clover. That's one that I think is fun, and it's got the new game sheen on it. My mom likes Azul, so we'll bring Azul and or Sagrada, probably not both. What new games am I keen to demonstrate? I guess I don't have any particular ones in mind. I suspect there'll be some games that will arrive as part of the gift giving. In fact, I know that there will be. So maybe some of those games. If my wife liked trick-taking games better, I would enjoy playing The Crew with my wife and my daughter and my mom, because my mom likes trick-taking games, particularly bridge, but my wife doesn't like trick-taking games, so I'm not sure The Crew will make an appearance. I might bring it anyway in case there's a day where my wife doesn't feel like playing a game and my daughter and my mom can play. I don't know what other games would make the cut. I will be sure to get back to you when I have decided that, Joseph Vandenberg. Tune into a future episode of the Pick Up and Deliver podcast. Now, I have in the past done Q&A episodes of Pick Up and Deliver where I answered questions from listeners instead of questions that I'm just boldly assuming were posted for my answering on Board Game Geek. If you wanted to ask me a question, you could do that by posting in the Pick Up and Deliver Guild or sending me a direct message. My username is Wombat929 on Board Game Geek, or you can email me, Brendan@Rattlebox Games. Any of those ways would be a way to send me a question that I might answer. If it's a sufficiently complex question, it might be the subject of a whole episode. Otherwise, I'll try to answer a couple in the same episode if it seems reasonable to do so. All right. So here's one where I probably can't answer the question without clicking into the forum, but I might do so anyway. It says, which of these should I take in a trade? Likely could get 2 to 4 depending on choices. I'm going to open that tab and see what the answer to it is, or what the games available are. I'm keen to know. They can get a few of these in trade. Wow, they've got a bunch of options. They have Azul, Alone, Apex Theropod deck building game, Star Wars Outer Rim, Dune, Fort, Tiny Epic Quest, Duelosaur Island. So that is a really wide mix of games that don't overlap a lot in scope, but I'm going to say that Azul and Fort overlap, and I would say Azul is definitely your answer there. I'm going to say Alone and Duelosaur Island and Tiny Epic Quest overlap there, and I would say of those, gosh, I honestly don't know any of those games. I know Duelosaur Island has mixed reviews. I haven't played Tiny Epic Quest, and I don't know anything about Alone. So I can't tell you of those ones. And then in terms of Apex Theropod deck building game, Star Wars Outer Rim, and Dune, that is tough. It depends. Do you have a group you could play Dune with? Because Dune is quite an experience. Or at least I've played Rex, Twilight Imperium Rex, which is the Fantasy Flight version of the Dune game. I would probably take Dune myself. It depends if they want to get it played a lot. Star Wars Outer Rim, I've heard, is fun, but also very Ameritrashy. So if you like that sort of thing, that's probably your answer there, friend. That's Logan Sutherland. Hopefully that helped, Logan. I don't know that it did. Searching for a board game, Martha Toller writes, well, you've come to the right place, Martha. Why bother recording playing a game? From the user, next game, please. So this is a person who always wants to move on. They're ready for the next game. Why bother recording a game? Well, for any given game, next game, I would say there's no particular reason to record it. That a single game by itself, recorded, doesn't do much for you in terms of the life, your life, the universe, and everything. However, a sustained habit of recording games allows for an introspection in your hobby that you can't achieve through randomness. For one, I think a lot of people think they've played games more than they have. This is a point that comes up on the Secret Cabal podcast a lot. They'll talk about having played a game, and they'll be like, oh, I played that game a ton of times, and then they look at their recorded plays and they've played it 3 times or 5 times. And so I think that recording your plays consistently gives you a chance to see how much you're actually playing. What are you actually playing? How are you actually spending your time? Second, it gives you a sense of history with other people. When you record your plays, you also record who you played with. Then you get this timeline, especially if you play in a variety of places with a variety of people. Like I've had times where I go to play a game with somebody at my game group, and I don't remember them very well. Maybe we've met before, but I can't remember their name. They tell me their name. I look it up on my phone, and then I'm like, oh yeah, we played Twilight Imperium Rex 3 years ago. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember you teamed up with Paul or whatever. So it becomes a memory aid that allows for you to make connections or sustain connections with people. The third one is if your memory isn't amazing, perhaps there's a game experience that you'll remember, but you won't remember exactly what you played. Like, you go to a con and you play a game, and then the next year you're like, what was that game I played at that con? It was super fun, but I can't remember what it's called. Well, not only could you look things up by date, but you can also look up things up by location if you're recording that information. So you can say, what did I play at Origins? And you can look through the list of games that you played at Origins, and hopefully that would be enough to jog your memory. Finally, there is some community building to be done for logging plays locally rather than digitally. So up till now, I've been talking about logging plays like in Board Game Stats or a similar app where you are keeping this data in the cloud and you are accumulating a set of data that you can use to reflect on your gaming experience. But we also have a tradition I've mentioned a number of times here on the podcast of box topping. And what box topping is where you, when you play a game, if everyone who's playing the game has played it before, then when that game is over, you write the results of that game in the top of the box. The advantage to this is that it creates this sort of living record of this particular game, the plays of this particular game, which makes for fun reminiscence. It makes for a little bit of fun camaraderie or a little bit of fun rivalry. It feels like an exciting honor when you get to box top somebody's game, when you are the one reflected in the box top. I recently got to play Tricarion again, I haven't played in a while, and just by the mix of people who played, I brought my deluxe collector's edition copy, and we played Tricarion. We were the first group of people to play that copy who'd all played it before, which meant I got to box top it, and that was fun. I did not win, so the first box topped game in my copy of Tricarion has someone else's name on it, but that's not a problem. It's still really fun. It's a delight to have that experience, and I love getting to do that. So there are a lot of reasons you might want to record your play, and those are just some of them. Next game, please. I would recommend trying it. Can someone identify what game this is from a photo? I'm sure someone can. Board Game Geek is an awesome place to do that sort of thing. Now, I'm going to try it because I like to participate in that sort of thing. So I'm going to look at this game and see if I can recognize the game. Oh, someone already... Dang it, I wish I'd clicked the link instead of doing the thing. Yeah, it's My City. I would have recognized it immediately. It was not a hard one. My City. That made for good podcasting right there. I bet you are excited. I like the identify a game. And there's actually a long-running, like hundreds of pages in Board Game Geek thread called Name That Game, which when I first saw it, I thought maybe it was about games somehow related to LGBTQ plus stuff, because it's spelled GAAAYYYYMMME game. But I guess they just wanted to really emphasize the long A rather than the short A. They didn't want you to say name that gom. They wanted to be name that game. So they put the Y in there, I guess. So that's a thread that's been long running, and I really like that one. They have a picture of a game component, and then they put a little clue about it, and then you try to solve the mystery of what game it is. I love it. I look at it regularly, and I do terrible. All right, there's a question here. Best 3 versus 3 games. Max 3.0 in complexity and 90-minute playtime. That is a tough set of requirements that I could not answer easily. The best 3 versus 3 games, so 6 players, 3 versus 3 on teams. I mean, I think Codenames is really good at that number. I'm gonna say Codenames. Inherently funny games, question mark? Well, I think games that are inherently funny are games that have you do silly things that are still fun to play, or games that have you create or do silly things. So a game where you're writing answers to stuff, those are inherently funny, generally. People try to be funny anyway. But I think I'm gonna point to Bunny Bunny Moose Moose and Happy Salmon. That's 2 games that are inherently funny because you're doing funny things in order to play the game, and it is a delight. All right, how to get over never winning is the last question I'm going to answer today. It's tough. It's tough to get used to never winning. I think that you have to, 1, talk to your group about it. If you're feeling bad, maybe play games that don't involve somebody winning every time so that you can not feel the sting of losing every time. But also maybe focus on a game where you can get better. And so you can win some. But then also just accept other people are going to be better at things than you are, and enjoy the game experience for what it is. And maybe that'll work. I don't know. I'd love to hear though. Well, it is time for me to wrap it up. So thanks for joining me on my walk today. Please join the conversation over on Board Game Geek and Guild 3269. Answer one of these questions better than I did. I'd love to see it. If you want to reach out to me directly, I've already mentioned Board Game Geek. My username is Wombat929. Or that's also the same username on Board Game Arena, Boitaju, and Yukata.de if you want to get a hold of me there. You can send me an email, brendan@rattleboxgames.com. Or, if you know me in person, pull me aside and say, hey, Brendan, I got a comment about the podcast. I'd love to hear it. Anyhow, thanks for joining me on my walk today. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.